what we see as the Proptech Connection, we're an independent strategic Proptech advisory. So we work with a lot of real estate companies globally implementing the digital strategy. And what I would say is what has fundamentally changed how we consume space, right, and how we interact with space has dramatically shifted post-COVID, right? Obviously, you see in commercial, lots of tenants or occupiers are obviously reducing space, right? Everybody's working from home, and people are, that is a material change, right? So what it means, if you look, for example, in commercial, is that the needs of, as an asset owner, understanding the people that use that space are very, very different than it used to be pre-COVID, right? So what it also means is that the needs, or the data and technology needs, have dramatically shifted. So we think there's a lot of nuance around this concept of PropTech, right? And I myself, I live in Chicago. I am born and raised in Amsterdam, and I lived a substantial time of my life in both South America and Asia. And in all these continents, there is different nuances in terms of what people are looking for, right? From a real estate ownership perspective or investor perspective. And in the US, it's all about transactions, right? So how to save money effectively. In Europe, you see obviously here a very strong narrative, more, let's say, Western, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, where you have a lot of regulatory pressure coming in terms of, its sustainability narrative. As a result of that, there's a lot of tech moving into that domain, right? So Europe is leading in that aspect. If you look in Israel, for example, there's another example. You have 7,500 startups in a 10-mile radius within Tel Aviv. And a lot is around cyber. Everybody has an obligation to go into the military or serve in some kind of capacity or intelligence. And as a result of that, they have a very strong background and track record. And you see a lot of tech companies coming in there. And Asia, I would say, is you see it's obviously very big, right? And you have obviously, let's say, developed countries, emerging markets, and then let's say developing markets. And there it's all about speed to execution. So how can you build faster, right? You have all these people, population growth, India, China, etc. So a lot of things have changed, I would say, and we think we're at the early stages of this a very significant roadmap where not only real estate companies are trying to become tech-enabled businesses, but the inverse, where tech companies are becoming real estate companies, we think is much more likely. It's hard to pinpoint into certain different technologies per se. What I would say more holistically is what we initially saw in market is that there were a lot of point solutions really addressing one specific issue for a potential customer. And what we now see in market, 5-6 years ago, this entire PropTech ecosystem really exploded. So as a firm, we are now tracking 19,000 real estate tech companies globally, right? And the challenge there is that many companies are doing similar things. And it's really hard from an adoption standpoint. So if you're a developer, integrated developer, construction company, effectively the entity that uses the technology, to understand which companies are out there, what's happening in the US, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Asia, who's winning, why is it happening, what are the different models, pricing, integration. So for us, we look at 140 different metrics that we go through before we actually go into the specific tech types. And from our perspective, we always need to look at where demand is coming from. And that brings me into answering your question. I think what we see a lot of upside is, for example, in Asia, you have, it's the largest, 50% of all construction spend this upcoming decade will be in Asia. As a result of that, you see a lot of people moving from the rural areas to urbanized environments, right? Moving to the city. And there's a lot of pressure from millennials to find affordable housing. So digitized construction, we think, is big. If you look in the Middle East, we do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia. It's all about building faster. So, how can you leverage tech to automate processes on construction sites, which is very broad, right? You look at 3D printing, you look at prefab, you look at modular, and a lot of insights, platforms, dashboards is a really hot space. And then obviously from a regulatory standpoint, you start to see that there's a lot of pressure on owners to decarbonize their assets, right? And that's where those worlds of real estate and energy are really colliding. coming together, where we think there's going to be a lot of new capital coming in, which creates a lot of opportunities. I think the district, it's wonderful to be here, first and foremost. It seems to be very well organized. I already had a number of really good meetings here with large investors, and as well as real estate businesses operating across wider Europe. I think what is really important is to bring people together. Real estate is very much a relationship-driven business, right? And if you don't meet people, you cannot, it's really good to learn what others are doing in the market, what's happening, what their struggles are, where the opportunities lie. So I think it's really important to curate that, right? And what I've seen, I attended a few of the sessions. I think really where you differentiate yourself, obviously, as an event and as a platform, right, of bringing all these different stakeholders together, is the quality of the content. And I saw, was it 2 sessions which were very insightful, which I think will obviously help, and will also make sure that people will return back in the future.